I think it was. I mean, I think it was a combination of the play, which I've always loved, and I used to be a theatre designer, so I knew the play well because I designed it before. Um, and there was just something about the screenplay that felt very fresh and intimate and human, and really simple. And then it was Michael. You know, he was sort of part of that vision. So when Ian and Emil kind of approached me about doing the film, Michael was already attached to the film. So I think instantly that already created a kind of tone and a mood to this Macbeth that was, you know, engaging. And he's someone that I was desperate to work with, and kind of thought it was a bit of a perfect storm, this play, him, and I'd just come off another film and that didn't get up, so it was you know, it felt kind of very organic and very kind of instinctive. I think, you know, she was sort of petrified of it, really. I mean, number one, that's in English, but also the verse and understanding the verse. She has an enormous respect for this character. It's one that she, you know, had always wanted to play. So it was really just a kind of bit by bit, you know, really getting down underneath the words and understanding what they mean, and then just finding a truth and honesty for her with those words. So it was quite lovely because there wasn't any premeditated idea of what she should do or what she should live up to. It completely came from her discovering this for the first time and finding her way with the character and the place at which she starts at the beginning of the film. Between action and cut is my favourite part of the whole filmmaking process. That's where something happens that you're never going to get again, and I think to me that is sacred. That environment, and that is where your film is made. It's where I get everything. That's where I get my sort of soul and spirit in filmmaking. Is from those moments, from seeing actors connect in a scene and lose themselves with all the work that they've done before, layering that. But it's in that moment, in that time, on that day, and that to me, it's like catching butterflies. It's just, you know, beautiful. So when you are reaching for that and you're looking forward to that every single day, then, you know, things happen because you know you're sort of setting it up to happen because there's an enormous respect for that space. So I don't know. It's always to me been the most important part of making a film is sort of capturing that stuff on the day and working with amazing actors. The research that I kind of did was heavily based on, I guess, the real Macbeth and, you know, kind of the times in the 11th century and what that was, and I guess how kind of brutal that landscape and world was. And it reminded me a lot of a Western. It reminded me kind of I don't know, a landscape and an atmosphere that felt much more dangerous than probably what I'd seen in sort of past productions of Macbeth. And then I guess the kind of shadow of war and being able to bring that to screen cinematically, and how Macbeth responds to war or is a product of war, and how that then plays into his ambitions to become king. There's something about Macbeth where it's characters manipulating each other that, I mean, at times I was kind of, you know, watching the verse between Marion and Michael, and also I think Michael and Paddy, that feels kind of like a scene out of Goodfellas. You know, it's kind of characters trying to, you know, manipulate each other in a very clever and conniving way, and there's a sort of subtext to all that is unspoken. And it's really interesting in Macbeth in that there is a kind of secrecy and a kind of tension that kind of happens within the verse that is almost conversational, as opposed to, you know, the kind of artifice of speaking your thoughts continuously. And I think that's very unique to the writing of Macbeth, and why I think it stands out from many of Shakespeare's other plays. I've thought about it, you know, quite a long time watching the play over the years, the idea of two characters trying to fill a void and trying to fill a kind of hole, and whether that's inspired by grief or trauma or whatever, that the idea that the prophecy and the ambition of it is somehow a way of replacing a kind of tragedy. So the sense of Macbeth obviously being a kind of weary soldier suffering from, or the suggestions of kind of post-trauma, we're also kind of suggesting a loss within their lives in terms of potentially a child. That became kind of really interesting in terms of somehow the prophecy and the killing of the king liberating these two characters in terms of them being able to move forward as people and also as a couple. That was a really deliberate thing to shoot a lot of this stuff outside. I mean, I'm doing ADR today, and the challenges of kind of post sound when you're shooting in environments where you're getting gusts of wind that are blowing off your set, and at the same time Michael's trying to do some very famous verse. There's some pretty serious challenges in that, but what it brings is a kind of groundedness and a reality and a sense of the landscape being connected to the words and to the performance, which I think you can really feel in the film. Is I guess kind of gives it an earthiness that I think is quite unique to the verse, but also to the storytelling. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't Michael. I mean, Michael was kind of really kind of part of the whole reason to do it. I'd met Michael after I'd finished my first film, and he's someone, I think he's you'll get embarrassed, but I do think he's one of the greatest actors of his generation by far, and he was an artist that I desperately kind of wanted to collaborate with. So, when Ian brought me the script and said, Macbeth, and I was like, well, yeah, and then he said, with Michael, and I was just like, yes. I remember the last sort of scene we had with Michael and Marion. It was, it was a really, really kind of melancholy moment of, wow, this is the last time I'll get to be with these two in a room doing Macbeth. Is pretty extraordinary.